Welcome to Buried States, where we dig up the American stories that got buried on purpose. Today, we are unearthing Oak Ridge, Tennessee, America's atomic ghost city, and the terror and shift workers operating 24/7. Yet, it did not exist on any map. It had no official name, and 99% of the people living inside it had absolutely no idea what they were actually making. And the terrifying scale of what happened here when the government decided to build a society completely in the dark.
Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into one of the most honestly mind-blowing and kind of chilling chapters of modern history. Just imagine an entire massive city. We're talking tens of thousands of people, huge industrial factories, heavy machinery buzzing away. And it just didn't exist on any map. Literally a secret empire built right on top of erased land. So let's get right into it, because the story of Oak Ridge is an absolute masterclass in monumental secrecy, and it all starts with a pretty dark mystery of wiping the slate completely clean. Section 1. Erasing the Forgotten Farmers. So to really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this secret, we have to go back and ground ourselves in late 1942. Before there were any fences or factories, this was just quiet, rolling Appalachian farmland. But the government, well, they desperately needed an isolated location, and they targeted a staggering 60,000 acres in Tennessee. 60,000 acres! This massive plot was earmarked for a mysterious project known only as the Clinton Engineer Works. I mean, just think about the size of that for a second. We're talking about generational communities suddenly slated for an immediate government takeover. And that brings us to the deeply human cost behind all that acreage. 3,000 residents were systematically displaced. 3,000! We're talking about humble farming families who had lived on this land for generations, right? And suddenly, they're watching their family farms just get bulldozed right into the earth. The government was building a massive secret, and sadly, these forgotten farmers were basically the collateral damage. Actually, the human cost gets even more shocking when you look at the timeline of these evictions. These families, they weren't given a year to relocate. They weren't even given 6 months. They were given as little as 2 weeks to pack up their entire lives. Imagine that. You've got just 14 days to abandon your home, leave behind everything you've ever known, and watch your generational history get completely erased. You can imagine the immediate, really chilling dichotomy this created in the region. On one side, you have the original residents suddenly stripped of their land and pushed right into poverty. But then, on that exact same soil, practically overnight, a brand new, heavily guarded city goes up. It's like an instant military-industrial complex was just dropped right on top of those bulldozed farms. Okay, moving to Section 2. An army of unwitting labor. Now, once you build a massive secret city overnight, you obviously have to populate it. And the speed at which they did this is just surreal. 82,000. That's the number of workers that came flooding into this fenced-in compound. By early 1945, the population of this completely hidden settlement had exploded to 75,000 total residents. That made it the 5th largest city in the entire state of Tennessee. And yet it wasn't on a single public map. Just a bustling metropolis operating in total, absolute isolation. But here is where the story shifts from, a logistical marvel to an absolutely absurd reality. The military deliberately hired young rural women, and they'd sit them in front of these massive, intimidating control panels. These women were taught to just monitor dials and pull levers completely blindly. They executed these highly specific, repetitive tasks shift after grueling shift with absolutely zero context as to what those levers actually did. It was the ultimate exercise in compartmentalization. If you asked questions, you were fired. That was the rule. The level of dystopian compliance they required was absolute. There was no casual water cooler gossip about the big picture here. If you spoke about your job outside the facility, you didn't just get a slap on the wrist. You vanished from the town entirely. The military demanded silent, unquestioning labor, and honestly, they got exactly that. So what were the workers told? They were fed a very simple, patriotic narrative. You're helping the war effort. And for most of them, that was enough to keep pulling those levers day in and day out. But the grim reality of their blind labor was far, far more dangerous. Because every dial adjustment, every single pull of a lever, was systematically refining a highly volatile substance known as uranium-235. They had no idea what it was and definitely no clue what it was capable of doing. You can feel how the tension inside those fences escalated, right? Going from those sudden, cruel evictions in late 1942 to a massive, secret population boom by early 1945. Tens of thousands of people working in isolated silence, refining this mysterious element, completely unaware that their collective effort was barreling toward a single, world-altering day in August. Which brings us to Section 3, the devastating truth revealed. After years of silent, unquestioning labor, the veil of secrecy was violently ripped away. On the morning of August 6, 1945, the workers of Oak Ridge bought their morning papers, and the horrific reality of their blind lever pulling stared right back at them in bold print. They hadn't just been helping the war effort, they had been refining the core ingredient for Little Boy, the world's first atomic bomb. The very substance they had been painstakingly processing had just been used to obliterate the city of Hiroshima. Just imagine the staggering, heavy weight of that realization hitting an entire city of people all at once. Section 4. Oak Ridge's Toxic Secrecy. Now, the story of Oak Ridge doesn't just neatly conclude at the end of World War II. The secrecy didn't just hide the city's purpose. It actually hid a dark, enduring environmental tragedy left behind in the soil. See, the process of refining uranium-235 was incredibly dirty. It left behind millions of pounds of toxic mercury, immense amounts of radioactive waste, and harsh chemical byproducts. And for decades following the war, this environmental cost was heavily suppressed, as all that toxic material silently seeped into the local soil and drained directly into the nearby Clinch River. And tragically, the cost of that suppression was eventually paid in human lives. Independent researchers who were battling against this heavy veil of national security finally uncovered a grim reality. While baseline illness rates remained totally normal elsewhere, the communities living downstream from the Clinch River experienced massive, horrific spikes in rare illnesses. The secret city had poisoned the forgotten land around it, and the truth of it was buried for decades. Which brings us right up to the present day. Today, Oak Ridge is a normal city on a normal map. You can drive through it, you can visit it, the fences are largely gone, and the people living there are free to speak. But the footprint of what happened there remains an incredibly powerful lesson about what can be hidden right in front of our eyes. And that leaves us with this final, profound thought to take away from our explainer today. If an entire society, complete with tens of thousands of workers, massive infrastructure, and literally earth-shattering capabilities, can be built, operated, and weaponized in absolute secrecy without its own citizens even knowing what they were doing, well, how do we ever truly know what is happening in the dark today? Think about that. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.
Thanks for exploring this buried piece of history with me. Keep asking the hard questions, refuse to let history be buried twice, and hit that subscribe button so we can unseal the truth together. See you in the next explainer.